Hi, I'm Kenny Joya. Welcome to another one of my tutorials. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create your first synth part using a sequencer in Reaper. Now, I've actually made two videos showing how to create your first synth part. In this video, we're going to trigger that synth with a sequencer. In the other video, we're going to use a MIDI controller. If you prefer to see that video, it should be right below this one on the REAPER video homepage. But in this video, we're going to trigger our synth with a sequencer instead of playing it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to download a drum loop to play along with our synth, just to keep it more interesting. So let's go to our search engine and type in Reaper Stash. Then we'll go to the website right here, and we're going to search first synth part. Then we'll click on this drum loop here and download it. Then we'll go back to Reaper and go to our directory on our hard drive, which is the Explorer on PC or the Finder on Mac, and find that file, which is right here. But let's first change the tempo of our song to 128. Which is going to match that loop. Then we'll drag this in to Reaper and place it right on the bar. So it's playing from bar 1 to bar 5. So let's loop it by creating a time selection, turn on looping down here, and play it. That's going to play in the background of our synth. Let's give this track a color. I'll use green. Let's make another track for our synth. Let's put it above here. Name it Synth. Give it a color. Something like this. Now let's set the input to my MIDI controller. MIDI, USB keyboard, all channels. Then turn input monitoring on and put it into record. So now if I play my keyboard, I should see level on this meter. And I do. If you don't have a MIDI keyboard, you can use the virtual MIDI keyboard that's built in. Go to View and go down here, Virtual MIDI Keyboard. Then we can trigger our synth with your computer keyboard, right over here, using these keys. And then you can set it up with your input to virtual MIDI keyboard, all channels. But I'm using a MIDI keyboard that's plugged in to here, all channels. So we have level on my meter. We're ready to put a synth on this track. Let's go to our effects. Let's go to our instruments and choose Resynth or Reasynth, which is a synth that comes with Reaper, so I know you have it. Let's double click it. Now this is a very simple synth. By default, it's just a sine wave. But we can make it more interesting by adding in a sawtooth wave. Bring it all the way over, and it sounds like this. And we could also add in an extra sine wave right here. But let's pitch it down first, right over here, to minus 1200, which is an octave down. Then we can mix in a sine wave to create a lower octave. That feels good there. Now it still sounds a bit simple. So let's add in a filter after this. Let's double click over here. Now let's go to the Reaper plugins and go to ReEQ, which we could use as a filter. Double click it. Let's remove all the bands except for one and change it to a low pass filter, which is going to make it sound peaky. And we can adjust how peaky right over here with the bandwidth. Let's bring it down so it's really nice and peaky. Let's bring down the gain so it doesn't distort. Now let's hear it. That's a bit more interesting. Let's leave it around here, but in just a bit, we're going to modify it so it moves to create a more dynamic effect. But let's first create a keyboard part, and we'll do that with a sequencer. So double click over here, go to All Plugins, and type in Mega Baby. There's a plugin right here called MIDI Sequencer Mega Baby, which you could use to create a synth part. Let's double click it, and let's put it first, because it needs to be before our synth. Then let's double click it to float it. So the way this works is each one of these squares represents a 16th note. And over here, we can decide the range where we play. So let's bring it up until the highest key over here is E4. So it's going to play an E4 if we select this box. In this box, just like that. We can delete it by clicking it again. So now let's create a melody. We'll start off with the E4, and right over here, we'll put in a B3. Then a C4, then an A3, and then a B3, which sounds like this. It's a bit too short, so we could double this by holding down Shift and clicking over here. And it doubles the part, so we have more squares to play with. Let's get rid of these by just clicking on them. Let's add more to the part. Put another B3 right here, then a C4 right here, another B3, an A3, and a G3, which sounds like this. And just like that, we have a synth part. But a lot of these notes are too short or staccato. So let's make the notes a bit longer. And we could do that on the PC, hold on Alt, on the Mac, hold on Option, and we can just drag them to make the notes longer. And let's do it to all of them, except for the last three, which I want to keep short. So it sounds like this. Much better. Now we could shorten the notes overall, right over here. Note length, we can make them really short, or full length. Let's bring it down a bit, so the notes are a bit shorter. Now this part is still a bit boring. Let's make it longer by creating another part it could alternate to or from. So we could duplicate this part, which is right now at part 0 up here. We could duplicate it to part 1 by holding Control on the PC or Command on the Mac and just clicking it. Now we duplicated that part to part 1. Now let's change the part towards the end. Let's replace these two notes with different notes. Let's put this one at G3 and put this one at A3 and delete these. It resolves nicer at the end. So now we want to alternate between each pattern. And we could do that by going back to the first one, hold on Alt on the PC or Option on the Mac, and click the second one. And that links them in a chain. So it's going to play 0 and then 1, and then go back to 0 over and over again. So now we have the part worked out, but we could still work on the sound. So let's close this, and let's go back to our EQ. Let's select the frequency. So it's the last touched parameter, and go to the menu here and turn on parameter modulation, which is where we can modulate this frequency or this parameter. Let's start off with audio control signal, and we could trigger it from itself using channels 1 and 2, and the louder it is, the more it changes our filter. But it's a bit too low, so let's readjust the minimum volume and the max volume so the travel over here is as far as possible. So bring this down. Then we can adjust the strength, which decides how far it moves. So where we set this is really based on personal taste. If you like a more filtered sound, bring it down. If you want more buzz, bring it up. Now let's add some delay to create an echo effect. Right here, we'll go to the Reaper plugins and choose Redelay. Bring down the wet so it's not so loud. Change the length to an 1/8 note, and let's hear it. Let's pan it to the left. Let's add another tap or delay and pan that one to the right, but change this to 2/8 notes or a 1/4 note. It gives it more motion, and it's also a bit wider. Then we can add a reverb. Let's go to this plugin, Reverbate. Bring the dry up, bring the wet down. Let's bring the room size up to about here. So just like that, we created our first synth part. But we could alter it by changing the parameter modulation. Let's go back here, and instead of using audio control signal, let's use an LFO instead. And now we could change this with the tempo. Let's make it 4 1/4 notes or a whole note. Bring down the strength so it doesn't move as far. Bring up the bass line so it moves where we want it to. Now it sounds like this. Or we can make it faster for a more radical effect. We can also pan it using parameter modulation. Let's add a volume plugin, all plugins, volume. And let's choose Volume Pan Smoother version 5. And let's put it before the delay, but after the EQ. Then we can automate the pan by touching it last, go up here, and choose parameter modulation. And again, go to the LFO. Let's choose centered so it moves left and right. And let's hear that. So there's so many different things we could do with this, but for now, this is our first MIDI synth part in Reaper. I hope you learned something, I hope you can use it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.